What is up, members of my collector corps? It is I, Super Mario Zilla, or you can call me Vinny, and today we will be taking a look at the S.H.MonsterArts Godzilla 2019 Night Color version Tamashii Nation store exclusive. This version of Godzilla is supposed to resemble how he looks in the nighttime, hence the blue, and it's supposedly supposed to resemble him specifically in the Boston final fight with King Ghidorah. It was advertised, actually scratch that, it was barely advertised as an exclusive for the Tamashii Nation store, including the one that opened up in New York. The store's Instagram page did not advertise this figure at all, which is really weird, almost like they were embarrassed about what they put out. As they should be, because even when the prototypes were first revealed, this figure had been subject as a laughingstock in the community, been ragged on left and right, and it got worse when the figure reached collectors' hands. The figure looked like an absolute mess with a cavalcade of quality control problems. I am honestly heartbroken from this release. This was something that should have been awesome, or at least decent, but instead we got this. This figure is disheartening to own, disappointed me to the highest degree, on all fronts. The figure can still be bought as far as I know at the Tamashii Nation store. Thing is, do you want to? Spoilers? No. I'll tell you why this figure is not worthy of a spot on your Monsterverse shelf. On the surface, without taking any close looks, this figure seems to look half decent, but upon messing with him and taking those close looks, the cracks start to show and then some. The sculpt is kept the same, but mold degradation is somewhat at play. It doesn't look terrible, thankfully. The sculpt still does look great, so I'm happy with that. The paint job is really weird. Some parts of the blue was applied too thick, and other parts the blue is barely noticeable, as if to say, what was the point of having it at all? Even in intended toy photography settings, as you saw earlier in my photos, the blue is practically invisible. You can't see it, period. Only in lighting conditions like this right now is when you can actually see the blue, but even then, you probably don't want to because it doesn't look very good. I won't sugarcoat it, the face looks terrible. The teeth look disgusting. There was no need for this weird gold color at all, and it looks so soft, the sculpt. And look at what they did to the eyes. It's like one side is normal, and the other eye is inverted from the other one. It looks goofy. Looking at the back of the figure, you can see the blue doesn't extend to the joints, it's just not there. So not only does it look bad, it was also done very lazily. The blue in other places looks too subtle to where you barely notice it, especially in toy photography as mentioned earlier. But on the chest, the blue looks really harsh. And I mean really harsh. Look at how deep it is. I thought it was supposed to be a little like highlights. This sucks. His right leg has more blue than his left leg. What the heck happened? It doesn't look good at all. The dorsal plates are the nicest part about this figure, but even then, that doesn't subtly make it good looking. The blue is not harsh, and it looks decent, but what about everywhere else? Where it's too visible or too invisible? The tail suffers the same problem with the blue being barely noticeable under normal lighting conditions. Overall, this figure looks like an amateur's first custom and looks like a very rushed product. No time and no care was given at all for this figure, which is really sad. Shame on you, Bandai. Articulation was kept the same, but it doesn't feel the same in some areas. There were some joint problems, and they addressed that by putting lubricant on some of the joints. So, yeah. I don't know. It doesn't feel quite right. It's the same, obviously, but for some reason it just doesn't feel the same. That's the best way to explain it. In some areas, I mean, others, you know, it's the same stuff. So, anyway, let's go over it. Head is on a ball joint right here, and the neck is on a ball joint here and here. So he can look all the way up. Cannot look down all the way unless you crunch the abs forward. And he can look side to side. Can just go all around. Jaw is on the ball joint. The tongue is on a ball joint as well, but I'm not going to try to move that because it refuses to. Arms are on ball joints. Elbows are on ball joints, so he can bend his elbows just about 90 degrees. And hands are on ball hinges. Ab crunch right here and right here, so he can crunch forward just about this far forward, and backward this far back, and of course can lean and rotate. Legs. They keep clashing into each other within the crotch region because of how the sculpt was, well, sculpted. So sometimes he can barely move his legs forward, it can barely move his legs back. It's a little bit of a mess. And I don't recall having that problem on previous versions of this mold. So it's like, what the hell? Yeah, it's really weird how they designed the legs here. Maybe I'm missing something, so correct me in the comments in case I am. But either way, it's a little bit difficult to move the legs, and there's always a constant gap right here that I cannot close no matter what I do with the ball joints. Maybe it's stuck. Yeah, see that? And every time I pose the leg, the gap opens back up anyway. So it's like that's a problem where gappaging is a problem when you can't close it. Yeah, it doesn't feel right. Knees are on ball joints, so it can bend just about this far back and can obviously go all the way forward. Ankles are on ball joints, so he can kick them back about this far, can kick them forward about this far, and ankle rocker is decent. Pretty cool. Tail is on many series of ball joints, so you can curve it and twist it in many different shapes. I had an instance where the tail right here popped off, and so did the ball joint out of both sockets, and it was a pain getting the ball joint back in there, even with heat. So in case that happens to you, be mindful. Yeah. So articulation obviously is the same stuff as before. It's not bad. You could still pose them. Other areas just don't feel quite right, in case that makes any sense at all. Like, I'm not sure if a quality control messed with this figure or the joints on mine are still a little bit too tight. I don't know. I honestly don't know, and I don't know if I can really give a proper answer to it. Oh, and also the arm right here is constantly popped out, and I cannot push it back into the socket. It's not loose on the ball joint or anything. It's in there, nice and tight. But like, it's not in the figure like this part of the arm should. You get what I mean? It's like shifted this way instead of, you know, being even right here. So yeah, like what happened? Articulation is not bad, but still, it's like, sheesh. Yes, we get accessories, and it's 2 calm, relaxed hands. Yeah, no beams or nothing, just the 2 hands, and I can live with that if it wasn't impossible interchanging the hands without heat. Seriously, I can't get these on for the life of me without using a hairdryer, and even then, I don't like interchanging the hands much for that reason. Accessories are a waste in my opinion because you could have taken these hands out of the equation and nothing would have changed about this figure. Not that coming with no accessories is okay, mind you, especially for his price. Here's a size comparison with other figures you may or may not own, and his scale has not changed. He's still the same size as previous figures using this mold, standing tall but not too big either. so he'll scale fine with his Monsterverse companions, and even Toho monsters scale just fine with them. So congratulations, he actually passed the size comparison test surprisingly enough. Overall, if you need him on a display, you can do it. Is this the worst MonsterArts in the line so far? You know what? Yes. This figure had a much higher standard because it's an exclusive product. What happened? Kong, the event exclusive, turned out great. The other Tamashii store exclusives are a lot better, as you'll see in my next review. The figure should have been awesome. It's not even worth it for the novelty because there is no novelty. This figure is just plain awful. There's almost no redeemable qualities with this figure. I am impressed that this figure turned out as terrible as it did, and I found it really weird that Bandai barely advertised this figure. Like, did they know this figure was garbage? Like, seriously, no one else finds that odd? Either way, I'll be brutally honest. You don't need this. Only completionists should get this figure, and even then, that doesn't make this a good purchase. Spend your money on something that's actually good, like Showa Gigan, as overpriced as that figure was, or the event exclusive Kong 2021. Hell, I can even recommend the original 2021 Godzilla release over this thing, because at least that figure had blue you could actually make out. This figure was doomed from the start. It started out with a bunch of problems and just kept having a non-stop pile-up of problems after problems. This figure was around $75, which is ridiculous for the figure you get right here. Again, don't buy this figure even if you find him for sale. He's not worth your time, effort, or money. And I know some of you keyboard warriors are typing right now, "Oh, why did I buy it?" I had to buy it for the review. I had to buy it because I'm trying to be a completionist, and I could still comment if this is a bad release. This is not cool, Bandai. Like, are you kidding me right now? This figure is a ginormous, epic fail! 1 out of 10. Stay the heck away from this figure. You see it anywhere on the shelf or any online store, just walk away, pretend it's not there. The figure sucks, not worth it, end of discussion.